I'm Fielden Swim, and I'm a nervous system-based coach, and I help powerful women rebuild their capacity after chronic stress so that they can start fully living again. I primarily work with high-achieving creative women who look like success on the outside, but feel chronically stressed, exhausted, or overwhelmed, or disconnected from themselves. And most of my clients have already done therapy and they've done a lot of personal development. And many of them come from functional wellness clinics. So they have labs, they have protocols, like they're incredibly insightful, um, and sometimes incredibly self-aware, but their bodies are still living in survival mode. And that's the biggest component. So my work focuses on helping people change through the nervous system instead of through effort or mindset pressure. I was coaching prior to NSI, and I was my own first client, really. I'd left a very intense job. And when I launched, and I've been in education for a long time. So moving into coaching was just essentially like me moving into private practice. And that leap from a steady, 9 to 5 job out onto my own, I had worked with a coach. And even though I experienced incredible transformation, I hit a wall really hard with my nervous system, went into a lot of threat, and really struggled to build my business. And so I sought out NSI because it was something that I knew I needed. So I got it for me first. And once I had really worked with my nervous system, and I think I had taken the course like twice already, I was really engaged with the work. I incorporated it into my coaching. And I think that the biggest gap that I noticed beforehand is like clients understood everything cognitively, but nothing actually changed, Like if we could just think a better thought, we would. But I realized that insight wasn't the lever, right? The body was. So I recognize, like, I guess NSI gave me a framework that explained why change only sticks when the nervous system experiences safety and new options directly. I just needed a way to work with people's protection instead of pushing against it. So that's why they come to me. They don't come to me because I'm also a certified integrative life coach, and they come because they want the nervous system work. And just like any referral network, it was one client had an incredible experience with me, and she shared about it with one of the owners of the clinics, and it just went from there. And so um, when when their when their patients are hitting protocols, they're taking all the supplements, they've done the labs, they're doing the things, but their nervous system is stuck in that protective state and they cannot really truly rest. They're spending money addressing this problem, but they're hitting these walls because of the root cause of the stress. And the wellness clinics, the functional health clinics recognize they're root cause based, right? So they know it's within the nervous system. And that's why they're referring people to me. I mean, this is completely, NSI has changed my life personally, and it's helped me create a practice where I don't have to search for clients. People find me. I think what people really appreciate that, we're not trying to work harder. It's not mindset. It's not willpower. So many of those things, I think can happen unintentionally within a lot of regular coaching and even in therapy. And what I really love about NSI is I think that it restores dignity to change. It is my whole coaching program that is nervous system based and oriented. I wouldn't do it any other way, right? That's why I have really good referrals, because it's just good work. I have a client. She is awesome and she's a business owner. And she intellectually understood that her workload was unsustainable. But every time she tried to set boundaries with her business partner, her body went into panic. And so instead of problem solving, which is the more traditional approach, we slowed down and we tracked what was happening in her nervous system the moment she imagined saying no. Her breathing changed, right? Her vision narrowed, her shoulders lifted, like classical sympathetic activation. And so we used orientation and gentle proprioceptive grounding while she stayed connected to the imagined scenario. And what changed, it wasn't the decision, it was her physiology, right? So within minutes, she could feel choice again, right? Her shoulders had dropped, her vision had opened back up, her vocal tone dropped. And those are all cues that I'm looking for, right? I'm not so dependent on story. I'm reading body cues. And so later that week, she set a boundary calmly without rehearsing it a gajillion times, without scripts or forcing confidence. She didn't crash afterwards. And the behavior just shifted because her nervous system had new experiences of safety. And from that conversation, the entire arc of her business changed. And she's living in a very sustainable business now, because when we imagine having whatever the typical trigger would be, and then we start down the well-worn path, right? The well-worn path of the shoulders and and then we can't say all of that, right? Well, the NSI tool allows us to interrupt that pattern. And when we interrupt the pattern, we interrupt the brain's prediction of what's going to happen. So instead of, and the thought loops and we interrupt that. And then all of a sudden, the brain has a chance to create a new prediction and a new path. And I love teaching my clients that this is self-directed neuroplasticity. We don't need to get in there and rehash everything you've been through before. And I think that that's a framework that unlocks a new world for people. Yes, I already shared that NSI helped me when I transitioned from my full-time career to being a coach, right? So it already came through in a clutch way once before. And then last year, I was in a horrific wreck on the interstate, um, the kind of wreck that really does change your life. And so afterwards, I couldn't read. I couldn't talk. Um, I was very concussed with the dizziness and the headaches and the vertigo and no energy, all of that. And even though it was a terrifying situation, there was something that I had an SI in my pocket. And as after the wreck, as my symptoms actually grew worse, I understood what was happening. I understood that not being able to read was because my vision wasn't integrating what I was seeing well. I know that through NSI. I knew that I couldn't talk because my brain was in such a protective response that to be able to speak clearly wasn't a survival priority. It was an output of all of the threat. And so I was able to work with all of the physical therapists and occupational all of the therapists and the doctors. I understood what was happening inside. And so I was able to support myself using my tools, understanding when you want to talk about getting overstimulated. I mean, I still can't go in Costco. The airport still requires a wheelchair, and that's okay because those are just the tools that I need right now for the level of capacity I have, which is actually pretty great. but those things are still a lot. But I was able to, my world got very, very, very small. I mean, it was like the size of the bed without the TV. And now I'm back to working full time. I can go to dinner with my friends. I'm driving again. I'm able to write. So, using NSI alongside what I was doing in rehab, which a lot of it was NSI tools, um, I was able to rebuild my capacity and open my life back up. And it's been incredibly rewarding to understand not only what was happening, but how to help myself. And I'm not afraid. That's the biggest thing. I'm not afraid of the symptoms anymore because I understand where they're coming from. I know what to do, and there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just building more capacity. And so it saved my life. And as I saved, it saved my life. And I think that this is really important too. I've been able to advocate for myself in a way that I can't even imagine if I didn't have my background in NSI. What excites me most about this work is that we're moving toward a paradigm where change is understood as biological learning rather than willpower. And that's what I mean when I say that this work restores dignity to change.